Hello everyone and welcome to Memory Flow, where we discuss fragrance and fragrance collecting. Now today we've got a lot of things to do, we got a lot of things to smell. I'm talking about some samples. I've kind of gathered over a certain period of time. But first, before I get into that, I want to show you maybe my obsessions. Some of the things I've worn quite a lot during this this autumn they are fragrances I have talked about, most of them with one exception, and they are as follows. One of them is Parfum Sacré by Caron. I don't know if I've ever spoken in English about this one in any of my English reviews, but this is a very beautiful rosy myrrh fragrance, which is quite difficult for me to describe because as I wear it, it gets more and more kind of elusive, kind of difficult, more and more increasingly difficult for me to describe and to, although I think I know it by now, I guess what strikes me the most interesting about this is its aldehydes are very modern and at the same time they are very classic. So it's a modern classic, but not in the usual sense. It's very difficult for me to describe this fragrance. Never mind the fact that the bottle is quite ugly. I can't stand this bottle. I can't stand whatever these are. But the fragrance itself is quite, it's amazing. So it's one of the most beautiful resinous roses I've ever smelled. And the myrrh in this it's not your usual balmy resinous myrrh. It's just oily and full, and it comes out so rounded and it's just so generous. It's a gorgeous fragrance. I think it has been changed into the new bottles that Caron now have, and if you can, please do yourselves a favor and try to search for this fragrance because it is a beauty. Another one I've worn out this fall quite a lot is, of course, Angel's Dust. It's no surprise there. This is a fragrance I've been obsessed with for quite some time. And again, what baffles me about this fragrance is the complexity that it has. It's just so complex and so difficult to grasp and to describe. But alas, I did speak of this in a fairly recent review, so I won't insist upon here. And the last one was this Chamade, and this one came as a surprise to me as well, because this is a fragrance I've had for quite a long time. This is a very old bottle for me. I think I've had it since 2018 or 2019 or some such. But I usually don't wear this fragrance all that often, but I've put quite a dent in this, as you can see. Again, this is a fragrance that's very elusive to me. It's very difficult to describe. It's a floral. It's an aldehydic floral. It's one of the, and this one together with Chandarome, they are the most elusive Guerlains in terms of smell. And for me, I can't quite grasp their nature, their meaning, their story. I'm not there yet, and I've worn it quite a lot. Not to say it isn't beautiful, it is gorgeous. For an eau de toilette, it is quite heavy towards its base, not as heavy. I would love to smell an EDP version of this. And the reason I've worn it so much lately is because I am truly trying to get acquainted to it, because I will at some point soon, I will want to speak of the whole female line from Guerlain, so stay tuned for that. So yeah, and now we will we have four fragrances. Oops, we have 4 samples here, 4 fragrances that we need to talk about. And they are as follows. We will talk about Chanel Paris Paris, which is the latest from their colognes. We have Hermès Eau de Basilic Pourpre, and another Hermès from Hermès Violette Volynka. And for the last one, I think, I don't know, I'm not sure about the order, it will be Sycomore Parfum, which is their latest X-ray, the latest X-ray from Chanel, if I'm not mistaken. So one thing I forgot to bring is a pointy blotter, so I'll be right back. These are the pointy blotters I need because this one doesn't have an atomizer, so I will have to probe inside with a blotter. Let's start with this one. Let's try Chanel Paris Paris. It's their latest from Les Eaux or Les Colognes, I don't know what they call them. It's so difficult for me to keep track of the various colognes that they have at Chanel. It's very rosy, musky and fresh. It's very bright, it's very happy. It's very Chanel because it has that woody, but maybe a bit bitter sandalwood undertone to it. You know, that Chanel vibe. It's there, so you can tell you're smelling a Chanel. It's nice. It's very nice. But I wanted to quickly go to Fragrantica to check one thing, because as I said, it's very difficult for me to keep track of their various fragrances that they release in that line. So I want to make heads or tails. I decided I want to see it as a whole now, and Fragrantica has this nice feature where you go to the house, to the brand, and you have all the collections, and it's easier for me because I'm a Guerlain guy, I'm not a Chanel guy, so I don't know that much about this house. If it's Guerlain, probably I'll know it, but not Chanel. So Les Eaux de Chanel, they are called, and they have Paris Biarritz, I think I smelled that one, Paris Deauville, Edinburgh, which is the one from 2 years ago or last year, Paris Paris, Paris Riviera, too many R's there, and Paris Venice. So I think I have samples for most of these, hopefully. If anybody's curious, just tell me and I will speak of them, as many samples I can get my hands on, because I think I have most of these as samples. I did try some of them. I can find them in airports, so when I'm bored and I have some spare time in airports, I can always hit them up because they're so nice to get to know, and they're exclusive, but not so much that you can still find them quite easily to smell. And most of them are, you know, they're eau de colognes, they're fresh, they're nice, they're bright, they're just interesting enough to want to get to know them, but alas, nothing to write home about. This is what I thought about most of them. I don't think I have a favorite. I don't remember even which one I've smelled, so yeah. But this one, Paris Paris, which is a rather interesting name because this invokes, you know, this Paris, Edinburgh, Paris something, Paris Deauville, Paris Biarritz. These are kind of voyages, you know, they are routes, whatever you want to call them, that Coco Chanel might have, you know, taken, because I think she had, I don't remember her history all that much. I think she had a house somewhere, I think she might have had a shop somewhere, I don't know. I'm not certain about things like that. I'll have to do my research. But Paris is quite interesting when it comes to terms, because it involves I guess a round trip. It's a round trip. You're going to Paris from Paris. So yeah, there you go. But the fragrance is nice. It's very, very rosy. It's a musky rose. It kind of reminds me of the honeyed rose from Rose Barbare by Guerlain, although that one is much, much fuller, much rounder. This one is indeed an eau de cologne. However, it is quite fancy for an eau de cologne. It's quite different for it's not the typical citrusy cologne that the classic type of making a cologne. It's a chypre. It's a chypre, definitely. Does have that rose patchouli thing going on. It's very, as I said, it's very honeyed. It does remind me quite a lot, now that I think about it, it does remind me quite a lot of Rose Barbare. Quite interesting. And let's see some of the notes. You have citrus, pink pepper, and lemon. And let me tell you, this is not very citrusy. It's not. The rose comes across much more powerful, but it is a bright rose. It's a lemony rose. Yeah, it's a bright, happy rose, and it does have this, because I see there pink pepper. I wouldn't have picked up on it necessarily unless if I hadn't seen it written there, but it is there because it's a natural facet of the rose. Rose does have some spicy facets. Not all roses do, but the damask rose that they used here, it's the same. It's the barbaric rose, the barbarian rose, and patchouli, of course. Yeah. So it's quite similar to Rose Barbare, with the addition that this one is more bright and it's a lot happier. And I'm guessing the price point would be lower. I'm guessing, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's quite aldehydic, it's quite Chanel, which is interesting. But there's not much more I can say about this fragrance, except that I do see myself wearing it. And it's a nice clean rose. But it is in fact quite similar to Rose Barbare. It is, not gonna lie. It even has that honeyed patchouli with that kind of a bit metallic facet that all chypres do have. It's quite there. It's in the ballpark. So yeah, do try this and tell me what you think. Let's try Hermes Eau de Basilic Pourpre. Let's see. I think this one is from this year as well, although it's much earlier in the year. So I know nothing of this, except that it has been, it was done by Christine Nagel, of course, and it is a part of their eau de, I don't know. Again, with Hermes, I'm not there. It's not my house. It's not my house. I will have to check. Let me see if I have any page of Hermes open. But this is very vegetal and very. It reminds me of licorice. It reminds me of licorice and a bit of ouzo. If anybody's familiar with ouzo, it's quite there. It's something very vegetal, bittersweet, and very anise towards aniseed, and with a bit of a celery vibe, a celery note, which is quite interesting. It's both celery in the woody, rooty, earthy type, and also in the green vegetal. So both the parts that you find underground from the celery and the parts that you find above the ground. So it's a celery, but it is quite interesting. It's very very gardeny, very vegetal, a very vegetal scent, and it is quite fresh and bitter and sweetish somehow. But I was doing something, so yeah, because I don't know their collections and all of their, I don't know what they're called. Yeah, so Fragrantica doesn't list this as a collection, although I know for sure that they do have this collection. Their website as well doesn't list it as a separate collection, but it's the sort of fragrances that start with eau de. So you have eau de rhubarbe écarlate, eau de pamplemousse rose, eau de neroli doré, eau de narcisse bleu. Some of them might be discontinued. I don't know. I haven't kept track on them. So this is the latest eau de Basilic Pourpre. It's supposed to be basil, the purple kind, the darker basil. I don't know if they are probably committing some sort of culinary crime here, but I don't know if there is a difference between different types of basil. I guess there has to be. I'm not that aware of any differences there might be between them. However, the fragrance itself it's quite interesting. It's quite nice. I know the notes already. I know what they are because I did check their website for this, and I have been looking for that geranium. And I know that the geranium comes with those bitter parts, but again, for me, it's more something very gardeny, very vegetal, very rooty, very earthy, which is very, very interesting. It's very interesting. It's right up my alley. But the fragrance does seem quite faint. I already barely detected on this piece of paper, which is interesting. It's quite interesting because I just sprayed it, so maybe I am getting nose blind. I'm not sure. Let me see if I can smell something else. Oh, definitely. I can still smell the rose from Paris, Paris. But this one, no, it's quite gone. It's quite gone, unfortunately. So this is the problem with, I guess, some of the fragrances from Hermes lately. I don't know what to say. It's quite fleeting. But the opening is very strong ouzo. Then it kind of goes into this celery interesting part before promptly it goes away. So the notes are bergamot, basil, geranium, patchouli, and I don't know, spices. Fragrantica says spices here. I want to go to Hermes, the Hermes page for this, or the Basilic Pourpre. And its pricing, because I have it right here, it costs $179 for the big bottle, and I don't know, let's see, $132 for the smaller one. 3 ounces and almost 7 ounces there. I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. I'm not sure what that means, as I'm not familiar with ounces. Anyway, I wanted to go here because let's read some of the things they're saying about this. So Hermes Colognes welcomes a new light and airy, well, definitely airy, plant-driven creation. Definitely, this could be the new Bjork video. Atopos. This definitely could be the new Björk video. Conceived by Hermes perfumer Christine Nagel, Eau de Basilic Pourpre is a tribute to purple basil, a sun-drenched aromatic that calls to mind conviviality and summer holidays with the family. Sorry about that. I've never seen that word before. Olfactory notes. Eau de Basilic Pourpre expresses the deep and generous aromatic freshness of purple basil, enlivened with light crystalline green bergamot and geranium to lend character. It is quite crystalline, with the fact that it does remind me of that alcoholic beverage, which is ouzo. It does have that glassy, sharp feel to it, so that part is quite true. The iconic lantern bottle is dressed up in luminous green that vibrates with color. The orange box adorned with yada yada yada. Not very interesting there. Olfactory emotion, fresh and delicate. Definitely delicate, because I can barely feel it even now. Raw materials: purple basil, green bergamot, and geranium. Because I wanted to go here because I'm not sure about that patchouli which Fragrantica lists there. Maybe it's there, maybe it isn't. I cannot pick it up. Although there are definitely some earthy, rooty things in here. As I said, it's the celery both above and beyond the ground. So yeah, very interesting. Alas, quite fleeting fragrance from Hermes. Now let us go to something that's let's try Sycomore. Sycomore Le Parfum from Chanel. Let's see what this is all about. I'm pretty much sure every one of you knows, have gotten to smell the original Sycomore, so I don't think there will be something new, but maybe as an extra, Sycomore might have something else to offer. We don't know. Oh, you know what? This this opening is quite interesting, because it's, so what I'm smelling now, it's definitely Sycomore. Definitely the same type of scent, but the opening was a lot less harsher, a lot less harsh than Sycomore. It was a lot sweeter, a lot more delicate, which is very interesting and very, again, very, very Chanel. But it does feel a lot more delicate than the original Sycomore. Delicate in the sense that it's not very raspy. It's not, it's woods, it's all the woods you can imagine, but it's not raspy, it's not abrasive, not at all. Not to say that the original Sycomore is, I mean, it's not an abrasive fragrance, but it is more, it's a lot harsher than this one. So this one is a lot more rounded, a lot sweeter, and it reminds me of a more toned down Ensalade from Marc-Antoine Barrois. Make of this what you will, because I do feel that both the fragrances are kind of in the same vein. I think I also said that in the review of Ensalade. Yeah, so interesting. But again, this, I think I will have to wear this on the skin, and I think I will do it right now, because you know, in order to grasp the many facets that an X-ray might or might not have, you kind of give it all the chances that you can, you know, because as it is, there's nothing much there to talk about, you know, quite similar to Sycomore, and not much else. And lo and behold, on the skin is just it's just as abrasive as the original Sycomore, alas. But it is still a beautiful fragrance. I think I might have said this before, but if anybody's looking for something very, very, very similar to this, you should try, what's that fragrance's name? Encre Noire. Definitely. It's definitely Encre Noire from Lalique. So not much going on there for me. I'm trying to reach the page for this just to see if there's anything interesting to talk about, because the fragrance itself isn't very, I don't know, doesn't offer that much in terms of conversation. Sycomore Parfum. So again, not being a Chanel person, it's not my favorite brand out there. There's no reason to not have Chanel as a fragrance, as a favorite brand. It's just not it's not mine. But I don't know what their deal is with their parfums, their X-rays. I don't know how many they have. If you would ask me the same thing about Guerlain, I'd be able to tell you a lot more. But yeah, so nothing here. I do see this iris quoted here beneath usual familiar notes of vetiver, cedar, and you know, that leathery undertones that of course it does have. But my nose doesn't detect any iris. It does detect some ambery vanillic undertones, which is quite interesting. I think this is an addition, and it's quite welcome. And it's, yeah, it's a lot less abrasive now, and it's more rounded and more pleasant, of course. But this fragrance remains a fragrance about, this is Chanel's vetiver Sycomore. Definitely, it's a fragrance about vetiver and all its glory. It's a sweet, almost honey-like, honeyed vetiver. It's an ambery vetiver. It's very nice. But yeah, I'm guessing this X-ray version will find a lot of fans. Why not? And yes, also I detect the leather quite nicely on the paper, because on me it's very, very sweet. It's very honeyed. It's quite syrupy. Very interesting on the skin. Now, would I pay exclusive money for this? No, not for me. Not for me, but for the fans, sure, definitely. Definitely. Now, let's go to probably the fragrance I'm most curious about from today's lineup. This is Violette Volynka from Hermes, the latest from their Hermès collection. See, this one I knew that one. Again, I think I have two more, at least one more Hermès sample I would be able to talk about. So if there is any interest about that, so do let me know and I will talk. I think it's Poivre Samarcande. I'm not sure. I will have to check. But this one, Violette Volynka. Oh my. So in most Hermes fragrances, you should be able to detect some leather, because this is Hermes, it's leather goods, it's what they're known for. But Violette Volynka is all about leather. It's about a violet leather, both in terms of color and in terms of smell. And I'm quite taken with this. So what I'm smelling here is a sweet violet type of smell, which is not unlike Putain de Palace, and not unlike Angel's Dust right here. If you kind of isolate the violet / iris that this has, because this one has them both and it's quite difficult to pull them apart. But where this one is murky and musky and very, this one is clear. This is a clear violet. It's in the same vein as Messia from Chanel. And in the same vein, what's that noise there? It's probably my cat doing something. One of my cats. So it's clear, see-through, crisp violet, fresh violet, dewy violet. It's very much in the vein of Messia, although not as powdery, but very similar to Putain de Palace from État Libre d'Orange, in the way that violet is rendered, right? And the impression of the color purple or violet, it's there. And it is beautiful. This is gorgeous. I want to go to the page for this. So let's talk about the Volynka part of this fragrance, because I had no idea what this was, but now I know. This is I want to say it's a type of leather, but that wouldn't be true. Also, I want to spray this, because God, you know me and my leathers. I have to know more. So Volynka is not truly a type of leather. It's just the name that Hermes have given to their recreated Russian leather recipe, which they claim to have recreated. And I do have an older video on leather and the way Russian leather is prepared, was the traditional way of making, of preparing, of tanning the leather. I'm not sure. It might be in Romanian, but I'll give it a ballpark here. The way that they did it is they used this birch tar, right? So they had this birch tar that they prepared by soaking the inner bark of the birch tree and then kind of infusing it for a long time. It would be they had this contraption that they had to bury it underground on a slow burn, so they would infuse it, and from that slow burn they would obtain that tar. Not quite sure how they did it, but the tar they obtained, it was called dehut in Russian. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, dehut. And I know this because they used to do it on, I think they, during some of historic periods, I'm not sure about that, but they used to do it in Romania as well. So yeah, so this is why they did cut a lot of birch trees down. So birch trees are quite rare nowadays because of that period. And that tar, because it's all about that tar is very special in terms of smell. So what they use in perfumery is, I guess, something that's quite similar to the way that tar smells. It's very deep, it's very smoky, quite woody, you know, because it would have to be. It's a woody, smoky, animalic. It's quite difficult to render, because, you know, I haven't smelled it, but it's the type of thing that gives its essence to the leather itself, right? So using that dehut, that birch tar on the leather for tanning it would. This is why the leather, the Russian leather, has that particular smell. It's because of that birch tar. So when you think of Russian leather, of Cuir de Russie in perfumery, you mainly think of that birch tar, right? And Volynka, I don't know why they called it Volynka. I'm not sure. Maybe the people from Hermes would kindly give me an answer for that. I know they do have other leather goods that are called, they use this Volynka leather. I also know that Volynka is a type of bagpipes that they use in Ukraine, not in Russia. This is also interesting. I know that I don't know what's it called. They have an oblast there. They have a region in Ukraine. It's in the north western part of Ukraine. Volhyna, I think. Let me see. Let me see. I don't want to make Volhyna region. Volyn Oblast, right? So maybe it has this ties, maybe it ties into that, although I don't get the, yeah. Somebody from Hermes would, if somebody from Hermes or somebody who knows would lift this mystery for me, I would appreciate this very much. But the fragrance itself, it's just amazing. It's just it's out of this world. I love it so much because it's that sweet violet, almost with an almost ambery touch that kind of gets juxtaposed with this undoubtedly harsh Cuir de Russie. And what they do create is something quite unique. Although the fragrance itself is not, you know, it's difficult to call this fragrance unique when there are so many fragrances in this ballpark. And the same ballpark, you know, it's a violet fragrance. It's powdery enough. It's similar enough to Pitain de Palace and other fragrances in this vein. However, I find that every one of them do have this unique thing that's only for themselves. So yeah, and in terms of originality, I guess you can deduct some points, but then again you can add some points because every fragrance does come with something unique to itself. Yeah, so I don't know if there's anything else to be said about this Violette Volynka, except I will have to get to know it a lot better. It's so faint, smoky. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. I guess I like it so much because I'm very familiar with this type of smell. As I said, it's quite similar to other fragrances in this ballpark. And I detect a hint of rose to it. It's quite floral. And very, very delicate. And I also said about the color purple. It's a clear, electric almost purple. The color impression that this fragrance creates. And this is no coincidence because I think it's the color of one of their bags. I think it's the color of one of their bags. I think it's one of their Birkins, which has this beautiful faded brownish violet type of color. You know, you can I'll probably post a picture of it, and it's kind of the same idea that this fragrance also wants to transmit. So yeah, that's an interesting thing, and a bit of continuity within the house, from the leather goods to the fragrances, which I do like, and I do find it quite fitting. Yeah, so this was my video of 4 very nice fragrances, but if I had to choose a favorite, you can definitely tell that Violette Volynka would definitely be it. So if you have any more questions about any of the fragrances we've talked about today, do let me know in the comments. And until next time, remember, fragrance creates memories, and may yours be happy.